a Swiss air quality company shows that the most polluted countries included Chad, Iraq, and Pakistan. 90% of the global population experienced unhealthy air quality in 2022, and only 6 countries met the WHO's recommendations for safe air pollutant levels. Now, you can find the full review of the most polluted countries and cities at CNBC.com. And now, what else could go wrong? The past few years have given us our fair share of black swan events, but what about those gray swans? Those are the things that are more or less inevitable based on current trend lines, but somehow they still surprise us when they happen. You could argue this week's banking crisis was a gray swan, but when it happened, we were still kind of all caught off guard. My next guest has been gathering ideas for the next gray swans in our economy and how to invest for them. He's a seed investor and author of Regulatory Hacking, a Playbook for Startups, Evan Burfield. Evan, it's great to see you here. You and I first met over 20 years ago. You were ahead of the curve then. You're ahead of the curve now. What are the gray swans that you're watching for right now?
Eamon, I'll give you 3 that I'm paying a lot of attention to. The first is mineral insecurity. It's pretty well known at this point that we're going to need somewhere between 10x, 20x, 40x, depending on the mineral, more minerals in order to meet our clean energy goals. What I think is not fully understood or appreciated that's going to lead to gray swan events is the fact that a tremendous amount of our supply of those minerals is either produced in China, or the supply chains are deeply dependent on China. As tensions rise, I think we're going to see an awful lot more discussion about how dependent almost every facet of our economy is on those supply chains.
So we know there's going to be real pressure on the mineral supply chain. How do you trade that if you're an investor?
I think there's obviously sort of public market opportunities to trade it. I'm probably more interested in the longer term aspects of this. These might not hit for 5-10 years.
Yeah.
But I think what you're going to see is a huge shift away from a lot of the current production centers. You have tremendous untapped reserves in Latin America, for example, Australia. But you're also going to see a lot of technological innovation, microbial mining, phytomining, deep earth mining. You got a lot of technology companies that have seen very little venture capital during this last sort of wave that are going to become really important.
So it's a problem, and there are solutions out there.
Yeah.
What's your next one?
Aquifer depletion.
Yeah.
2 largest aquifers in the U.S., 2 most important ones, the Ogallala Aquifer under the Great Plains, the Central Valley Aquifer in California. We're running out of water by 2050.
So much about the drought in California. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happening out there.
And yet we're still getting all of our winter vegetables and our fresh strawberries because the water isn't actually coming from the rivers. The water is coming for the agriculture from under the ground, and that's running out.
So your theory is, like, that's a problem we know is coming.
It's absolutely coming.
Right? So, again, if you're an investor, how do you get ahead of that?
Again, I think you're going to see a tremendous shift away from kind of the results of the third agricultural revolution to the fourth, which is going to be regenerative agriculture.
Yeah.
Uses 1/10 as much water, much more rich food, much less chemical inputs. How do you trade that? Big implications for the current chemical industry, but also a lot of new technologies coming to bear.
I actually asked the team working on the show tonight if there's any way to trade this in the public markets. I said there's an ETF out there on water, which I didn't know. I didn't know that was even a thing, but apparently you can go out there and buy water.
Absolutely.
You got a third one.
Third one, I think this is more of a bevy of baby gray swans. I think we're going to see a series of crises that are going to...
That doesn't sound good.
We're never going to agree that the sort of Washington consensus neoliberalism is dead, but I think we are going to see a series of crises that are going to each time ratchet up industrial policies in the U.S. and in Europe. We're going to see much more government-directed R&D, much more rise of export controls, much more activity in deep tech subsidies.
The crisis you're talking about, is that political or is that economic?
It's the intersection
response?
It's the intersection of a series of technologies: AI plus augmented reality, AI plus biology, AI plus drones and robotics that are incredibly promising and powerful and dangerous, combined with geopolitical tensions.
And so you're going to see huge government response.
Absolutely.
How do you invest that?
Oh, I think you're already seeing a huge shift away from. I think we're going to look at this banking crisis in the long term as not a banking crisis, but the moment when the sort of 30-year arc of internet investment was truly dead. And things like what Josh Wolf is doing with Lux Capital, really long-term deep tech investing, very different style of investing. You're not investing on getting to barriers, to moats and network effects as fast as possible. You're investing in true technological innovation.
I first met you at the dawn of the dot-com era, and now I'm sitting here with you at the end of the internet. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, in essence, yes.
Yeah, so the end of the beginning of God knows what.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, Evan Burfield, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. And that does it for us. Last call with Brian Sullivan starts